Just to let you guys know, we are recording this session for the folks that couldn't join us today. I'm gonna give them like 2 more minutes to hop on, just to see if we get any more students to join us. Hi everyone that's just joining us. As you can see, we're going to be doing things a little differently. Just trying it out for the first Leadership Lunch series. We're going to be using Kahoot. It's going to be a little interactive, some questions, and of course some slides. So if you want to join us, you can go to kahoot.it and then type that game pin and participate. And we'll get started in like a minute or so. Thank you. We have some more students joining us. So if you're joining us, please visit kahoot.it and then type that game pin, and I'm going to go ahead and get started, if that's okay. So, welcome everyone. My name is Vivian Delgado, and I will be your host for the first Leadership Lunch series of the semester. As you can see, today we're going to be talking about communication skills for leaders in hopes to give you guys those extra tips or skills that you may need some extra help with. So for our goal for today is to help you guys learn about the different types of communication skills, the different styles, have interactive responses with you because we're doing the Kahoot, and of course provide you those tips on how to improve your communication skills. Um, so just to let you guys know, first place, to win the Kahoot will get $10 on their one card. Second place will be awarded $5. And then third place, I'm thinking I'm gonna give you guys a portable charger that we were giving out during Welcome Week. So that's how we'll go about it. So to get us started, we're just going to dive into the basics. So communication is the process of exchanging information between two or more people. So this is essential for effective leadership because leaders need to be able to communicate their ideas and visions to others. So as you guys can see, there are four types of communication. We got nonverbal, verbal, and visual and written, and I'm gonna break them down. So nonverbal communication, that's when you use body language, facial expressions, nonverbal cues to convey meaning. Nonverbal communication can convey a lot of information, like what emotions you're feeling, the attitude or intentions that you or someone may have. So sometimes you may not even realize it, but you might widen your eyes when someone says something, or you might cross your arms or just tilt your head. And these actions alone can convey a whole different message or the message that you are trying to convey to others. It's particularly important when you are trying to emphasize during verbal communication, like if it's too loud in a room, or if you're really far away from someone, or if you're uncomfortable, you may use nonverbal communication. And it's also very important to know your own nonverbal communication and kind of to learn how to interpret other um, nonverbal cues that people might be giving you. Because if you misinterpret them, it can lead to miscommunication. So you always want to make sure you're kind of understanding what is being conveyed through nonverbal communication. And if you don't understand, you can always ask what people are just trying to say by their facial expression. You can always follow up. Next, we have verbal communication. So this is when you use words to convey meaning. So that's what I'm currently doing. It's the most common type of communication, and it's used in a variety of contexts, whether it be face to face, when you're presenting, or when you have those written documents. It can be used to convey all kinds of ideas, just from like simple chit chatting to super duper complex. And we have to remember that verbal communication is a two-way process where both the message being sent and received are important. Uh, and then we have visual communication, and this uses images, graphics, and other visual elements to convey meaning. Visual communication can be used to explain complex concepts. Like maybe you're giving a presentation, and these graphs that you're using will make your message more engaging, and you're able to capture people's attention. And lastly, we have written communication. So this is when you use written words to convey your message. It's often used in formal settings like business letters and reports, or honestly anything that you write or type, like a text message or an email. So now that we know all four of the communication types, does anyone have any questions? Because the next four slides are going to be questions, and they're not super hard. Okay. And then if anyone just joined us, if you go into the meeting chat, you'll go to kahoot.it and there's a game pin. And then you can just join us because we're going to go ahead and do the first question. So the first question, what is the most common form of verbal communication? What do you guys think? Yes. So all five of you got it right. The most common form of verbal communication is speaking. We do this in our everyday lives, and it's important because it allows us to share our thoughts and ideas in just a very convenient form. Okay. Let's look at the leadership board. Lindsay, you're in first place. Our next question is select all that apply. So what are some examples of nonverbal communication? Okay, we got a mixture. Um, so if you said body language, eye contact, and facial expressions, you are correct. Um, I do see why some of you would say tone of voice, but nonverbal, you're not really talking. Uh, But when you use body language, eye contact, and facial expressions, this is a powerful way to communicate your emotions and your thoughts and your intentions. They can help supplement verbal communication, or can honestly, you can use them just to communicate by themselves. If we use them effectively, we can build relationships, we can resolve conflicts, and we can achieve goals. So, next time you're using your nonverbal cues. You just want to make sure you're kind of consciously thinking of how you're reacting or moving around. Oh, now Lee's in first place. Okay, changing the leadership board. Our next question. So what are some tips for effective written communication? Okay, so if you said clear, concise, and proofreading your work before either submitting or sending that email. You are correct. And sometimes we can automatically be like, okay, yeah, that is definitely what we do for written communication, but it can also help us be effective with the message that we're trying to convey. It can make us more error free and, of course, appear a little more professional. Okay, Lee still in first place. So our next question, images, infographics, and charts are considered what kind of communication type? Yes, so you all got it right. So it is visual communication, and you may be wondering, well, could it be nonverbal and written communication? But the reason why it's visual communication is because it's conveying either those infographics or charts or images. They're conveying their own meaning, their own message. So that was a tricky one, but y'all got it right. And Lee is still in first place. Okay. So let's talk about communication styles and what do you use? So there are four different types of communication styles. They're your passive, your aggressive, your passive aggressive, and your assertive. So if you are passive, passive communicators tend to avoid conflict and they rarely express their own needs or wants. They may be afraid of being judged or rejected, so they often go along with whatever anyone says, and they don't kind of test it, they just go with it. And then you have those aggressive communicators, and they are very direct and they're assertive. They're the ones that are demanding and they're controlling, and they not might be respected um, by others because of their opinions and how they approach situations. And then you have your passive aggressive communicators, and these are the people that use um, indirect ways of like getting what they want. They sometimes may use those little backhanded compliments. They're the folks that make sarcastic remarks. And then lastly, you have the assertive style. And these are the folks that are able to express their needs and wants clearly and directly, but still while being respectful to others. And they're also willing to compromise and find solutions. Um, so the first question I have for this is which of the following is not a characteristic of assertive communication? So yes, blaming others when things go wrong is not a characteristic of assertive communication because, like we mentioned, assertive communication is when you're willing to listen to what others have to say in a respectful manner. Lee has a 5 streak answer. Oh my gosh. Our next question. Which communication style is characterized by avoiding conflict and rarely expressing one's own needs or wants? Okay. So yeah, it is passive. Like we mentioned in the slide about the styles, passive is when you just kind of let things happen. You kind of try to avoid conflict. You don't really try to get too involved with whatever's going on. Passive aggressive is kind of when you're being sarcastic and you are not the type to avoid conflict. You want the conflict to happen. Okay. DSR4 has a 4 answer streak. Okay. So now let's talk about effective communications and what the elements of it are. So when you're communicating, it's important to be clear and concise. This means you're using language that's easy to understand, you're avoiding jargon or technical terms that your audience may not be familiar with. It also means you're avoiding being ambiguous or vague language or mysterious. So, for example, if you're in class and you have to do a project with someone, you should kind of steer clear of saying, "Can you work on your part of the project?" But instead ask them, "Could you do part C and add your references to the reference page by Wednesday, please?" This way, you kind of convey your message in one full sentence and they know exactly what you want them to do because you're being clear and concise. No room for questions, but questions are always welcome. Um, the next element is going to be using active listening. So, active listening is the act of listening carefully to what other people are saying and then repeating back what you heard just to show them that you understand. It also demonstrates that you're paying attention and that you care about what the other person is saying. So to use active listening, you can repeat back what the other person said in your own words, or you can ask clarifying questions, or you can summarize what they just said. So going back to that same concept of working on a project with your classmate, you could say stuff like, So you're saying that you're not happy with the way the project is going because, or if I understand you correctly, you're concerned about the reference page, and then because just reiterating what people say just to make sure um, that you understand what they're saying. And then being respectful. So respect is essential for effective communication. This means being polite and considerate of the other person, even if you disagree with them. It also means that you're avoiding insulting them or giving them any personal attacks. So when you disagree with someone, it's important to focus on the issue at hand, and you got to avoid making those personal attacks, like I said. You can also try to see things from the other person's perspective, and understand why they feel the way they do. And we're going to dive into some questions for effective communication. So which of the following is the best way to show that you're actively listening? Making eye contact is a way. And so is asking clarifying questions. But all of the above are correct. Because if you're making eye contact, you're nodding your head and you're asking clarifying questions, you're using your nonverbal cues that lets the speaker know that you are paying attention and that you're interested in what they have to say. Our next, DSR4 is in first place, and they have a 5 correct answer streak. Our next question is a true or false. Using jargon and technical terms can make your communication more clear and concise. False. So you all got that correct. So when you use jargon and technical terms, it can actually make what you're saying very confusing and difficult for people to understand who are not familiar with either the terminology or vocabulary that you're using, and you kind of end up creating barriers. And trust me, no one wants to pull out their phone and be like, I wonder what they meant by using that word, because that's not fun. DSR4 is still in first place. Okay. So let's talk about some barriers that can come with communication. And as we just got done talking about jargon and technical terms, that can definitely be a barrier. So there are many factors that can interfere with communication, and it's important to be aware of them so that we can either overcome them or avoid them. So the first one I'm going to talk about is distractions. So this can be anything that takes our attention away from the message that is being communicated, whether it be you being on your phone or just kind of daydreaming or like playing with your hands. The next one could be emotions. So strong emotions can make it difficult to think clearly and communicate effectively. And then you have those cultural differences. So people from different cultures may have different ways of communicating, and you have language barriers. So if you don't speak the same language as the person that you're communicating with, it can definitely be difficult to understand each other, and sometimes it could be impossible without the right resources. And then you have those physical barriers. So whether you're in a really loud environment or there's obstacles that can prevent you from communicating, like you're 30 feet away from each other. And then lastly, we have preconceived notions. So this is when we have our own beliefs and expectations about other people, and that can help us prevent from listening to what they have to say because we already have set on our minds how we view them or what we think of them. Let's do a question. So which of the following is the best way to overcome a language barrier? So this one was meant to be tricky. So I think all of them could be used, but the best answer is going to be patient and understanding. So when you're communicating with someone that doesn't speak your language, it's just very important to take it back to the basics and be patient and understanding. This just shows that you're making an effort to communicate with them, even though it is difficult, and it shows that you have respect for the person and their culture. Oh, Lee's back up. And our next question, which of the following is not a barrier to communication? Yes, did you all get that right? Okay. So yeah, lack of common ground is not a barrier to communication. So let me explain why. So, differences in communication style, preconceived notions, and physical barriers can actually all prevent communication from happening. So, if two people have two different communication styles, they might not be able to understand each other, like a passive person speaking to an aggressive person. The passive person may just end up giving up in the conversation and just either tuning out or walking away. Um, if two people have preconceived notions about each other, they might not be willing to listen to what either of them have to say because you already have an idea on your mind of what the person is all about. So, and if there's physical barriers, like you're really far away or it's just really loud, it's gonna either be difficult or impossible to communicate with each other. But lack of common ground actually doesn't prevent communication from happening. It's just a simple means of two people not having either shared experiences or knowledge. So it might make the communication a little more difficult, but it doesn't really prevent communication from happening. So if let's go back to the culture example. If two people from different cultures they may not have common grounds. However, they can use a translator or they can either find a way to communicate with each other just by like either signing or using common words like yes and no. Uh, so yeah, okay. And now Lindsay in first place. Okay, Lindsay, you have an answer streak of three. Okay. So lastly, I'm gonna give you those tips on how to improve your communication skills. And you may be like, I've heard this throughout the presentation, and it's because they're just pretty good tips. So you want to practice active listening, which we've talked about a lot today. So this just means that you're paying attention to what the other person is saying, verbally and non-verbally. You're listening, you're watching their cues, you're asking those clarifying questions, and of course, you're summarizing what you heard. You want to be mindful of your body language. Your body language can communicate a lot about you. So it's important to be aware of it and use it for your advantage. So you can always use eye contact. It is the best way, nonverbal cue, just to if you're in class, you always know that professors like students that are watching them. You can nod your head just to make sure that the speaker knows that you're listening to what they're saying, and then of course you can throw in a smile. You also have to be open to feedback. So, feedback can help in improving your communication skills. When you receive feedback, you have to be open minded and you want to learn from it and you want to ask those follow up questions. If you're like, oh, I thought I already did that. But if you didn't, you can just ask them how to improve. And you also want to be um, aware of your own communication style. So that's the passive, the aggressive, the passive aggressive, and the assertive. Um, like everyone has their own unique style. So just being aware of how you use it and whom you use it with is definitely can tell you how it affects others. And then we're gonna have two more questions. So which of the following ways of giving feedback is not respectful? Okay. Let me explain this because you guys thought focusing on the behavior and not the person. Um, so I said being willing to compromise, and this is because when people give you feedback, it's important to not focus on the behavior. Um, you're kind of sorry. It's important to focus on the behavior and not the person. This means you're avoiding personal attacks and focusing on the specific actions that the person took. It's also important to be open to the other person's perspective and be willing to listen to their side of the story. Um, so being willing to compromise is not always necessary when people give you feedback. Uh, in fact, it can kind of be counterproductive if it means that the feedback that's being given to you is not being given to you in a respectful way. So you don't always have to compromise. Okay, Lindsay is in first place. And our last question of the day, active listening is the same as passive listening. So yes, that is false. Active listening is not the same as passive listening. Active listening means you're actively engaged in the conversation versus passively you're just there. Uh, so to wrap up, remember guys that communication is a two-way street. Communication is not always easy, but working on those communication skills can definitely help you improve on how you communicate with others. It can help you build better relationships and just have a better outlook. Uh, so thank you for joining us. Does anyone have any questions? If not, our next leadership lunch series is Monday, October 9th. I forgot to change this. We're actually going to be doing two sessions. One's going to be at 1 p.m. and the other one's going to be at 6 p.m. And we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence. And I wonder how I see the scoreboard. I didn't get this far. Oh, here we go. So third place is DSR4. Lindsay is second place, and first place goes to Lee. Let me write this down so I don't forget. Would you guys mind typing in the chat your CCBC email and your CCBC ID numbers, please? And then I can definitely make sure to load your one cards. Thank you, Lindsay. And then Lee, Marie. Thank you, Samuel. Are you the DSR4 or are you Lee, Marie? And then Dumont. I think Dumont's the D. SR. Okay, yeah. Okay. Perfect. So, guess Sam is first place. Well, thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. And I hope to see you guys at the next Leadership Lunch series. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Ashley. It's just us.
I like the Kahoot in there. That's fun.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It makes a little bit of a different kind of interaction. So that's fun.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not really relying on people like
Mhm.
silently waiting.
Yeah.
So can we do two $5?
Yeah,
Like
that's fine.
10 and 2 5?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
okay. I will go ahead and do that.
Maybe if it ever gets on the one card, but yes, you can do that.
Hmm. Is that gonna affect Connect Fest too?
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
It's all right. It's all good.
Should be interesting.
Good way of putting it.
Okay. I didn't make the connection between the two, but now I do see it.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. It's all good. All right, go take a break.
Okay. I'm gonna go drink water now.
Yeah, go drink water. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.